If you are in or near menopause, you have probably heard a lot about what is going wrong with your brain right now. Brain fog, word retrieval problems, that feeling of walking into a room and forgetting why, that experience is real. The research on it is solid. And if that is happening to you, it is not your imagination. But here is something almost nobody is telling you alongside that. While some specific cognitive functions are genuinely shifting, something else is happening at the same time that almost never gets mentioned in the same conversation. Your financial decision-making is changing too, and the research on that change points in a direction that has nothing to do with decline. Let me be precise about what the research actually shows, because this matters, and most content in this space is not precise about it. Studies from the Study of Women's Health across the nation, one of the largest long-term research projects on this transition, found measurable declines in processing speed and verbal memory during this period. Those are specific, narrow cognitive functions. Speed of recall, word retrieval, the things that make brain fog feel real, because it is real. But cognition is not one single thing. It is made up of many different functions, and they do not all move in the same direction at the same time. Judgment values clarity, the ability to weigh a decision against what actually matters to you, rather than what you are supposed to want. Those are not the functions declining in the research. In fact, something measurable is happening to them. And it has almost nothing to do with hormones, and almost everything to do with what else is happening in your life at this exact stage. Here's what is actually happening in your psychology at this stage. For most of your 20s and 30s, a significant portion of every financial decision you made was shaped by an invisible audience. What will my colleagues think of this car? Will this house signal the right things about where I have got to? What does this choice say about me to the people whose opinion I was tracking? That is not vanity. That is the social comparison mechanism we have talked about on this channel, running at full power during the years when identity is still being formed and external validation still feels essential. Research on social comparison consistently shows that its intensity decreases naturally as people move through their 40s and into their 50s. The maturity principle, the documented psychological shift, where external validation becomes less necessary and identity becomes more stable, is well established across multiple studies. For women specifically, several converging life changes accelerate the shift further during midlife. Children, if you have them, often need you less moment to moment. Career trajectory has often plateaued in a way that is no longer about proving yourself. And the social groups whose opinions shaped so many earlier decisions simply carry less weight than they once did. The result is something specific and measurable. You are no longer making financial decisions to prove something to a reference group that mattered intensely at 30. You are making them based on what you actually value now. This is not your brain getting sharper. This is your decision-making finally being run by you, instead of by an audience you have spent decades trying to satisfy. I want to ask you something specific. Think about a financial decision you have made in the last 2 years that your younger self would have been too afraid to make. Whether that is starting something, investing in something, or simply spending money on something that mattered to you regardless of what anyone thought. Comment below with what it was. I want to see how many people in this audience are already living this shift without having had language for it. Here is what makes this particularly important to understand right now. Social fear does not just affect what you buy. It shapes your entire relationship with financial risk. When financial decisions are being filtered through social fear, the unconscious question underneath every choice is not, will this work for me financially? It is, what will the people I want to impress think of this choice? That filter creates a very specific pattern. You invest in things that are visible and respectable. You avoid things that might make you look foolish to your reference group, even if they are financially sound. You Stay in financial structures that feel safe socially, even when they are not optimal financially. Behavioral finance researchers call this herding behavior, the tendency to cluster financial decisions around what the people around you are doing rather than around what actually serves your own situation. And here is what the research on midlife risk tolerance shows. Women who report lower social comparison sensitivity in midlife consistently show more willingness to make financial decisions that deviate from their peer group, to pursue investment strategies that feel personally right, even if they are not the ones everyone around them is choosing. That is not recklessness, that is financial clarity. And it only becomes available when the social fear driving herding behavior finally loosens its grip. So what do you actually do with this? There are 3 specific actions that use this psychological shift deliberately. Action 1. Audit 1. Decision. You have been deferring out of social fear. Identify one financial decision you have been putting off, not because you lack the information, but because you have been anticipating someone else's reaction to it. Ask yourself honestly whether that fear still has the same grip it once did. For many women at this stage, the answer is genuinely no, and naming that is often the only step needed to finally act. Action 2. Reassess your risk tolerance on paper, not from memory. Most people's sense of their own risk tolerance was set years or decades ago and never revisited. Sit down with whatever investments or financial plans you currently hold and ask whether the caution built into them reflects your actual values today, or a version of caution you adopted to satisfy someone else's comfort. This is not about becoming reckless. It is about making sure your current financial strategy is actually yours. Action 3. Make one values-aligned financial decision this month. Not a large one, not a dramatic one. Just one decision that is made entirely on the basis of what you actually want financially, without running it through the filter of what anyone else would think. The first time you do this deliberately and consciously, it feels surprisingly difficult. The second time, less so. And the research on habit formation suggests that the decision-making pattern, once practiced, becomes the new default fairly quickly. If you want to understand more about how financial decision-making actually changes across a lifetime, Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money, covers this territory in a way that most financial books never touch. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments below. If you are in this life stage and someone has told you that your best financial decisions are behind you, the research says otherwise. Not because your brain has been enhanced, because for the first time in decades, the social fear that shaped so many of your earlier financial choices is finally loosening its grip. The decisions you make from here, made by someone who finally knows what she actually wants and no longer needs an audience to validate it, are the most financially powerful decisions of your life. Not despite what is changing, because of what finally is. Save this one and send it to a woman in your life who needs to hear that this stage is not a decline. Subscribe if you are tired of knowing what to do and still not doing it. And if you want to understand the specific psychological scripts that have been shaping your financial decisions since long before this life stage began, that video is right here. I will see you there.